Good morning, good Shabbos, everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone, both those who are here in person today and also those who are joining us by live stream. It's good to have you with us. We are going to begin our service today on page 54 of the Standard Book with Baruch Shemar.
Baruch Shemar v'yaholam Baruch Hu Baruch Haseh Bereshit Baruch HaMevi Yaseh Baruch Kazer Mekayim Baruch Merachem al Haaretz Baruch Merachem al Habriot Baruch B'Shalem Sachar Tov L'Reyaha Baruch Chailad V'Kayom LaNetzach Baruch Podeh Matzil Baruch Shemo Baruch Yachid Chayolamim El Meshuva Umfared Adei Ad Shemo Hagadol Baruch Adonai Melech Mehulal Batish Bachot.
We turn ahead to page 334 in the book for Nishmat.
Nishmat Kol Chai Tivorech Et Shimcha. Mi ad melach umi shvelach umi arach lacha el agadol agibor v'hanora el elyon konei shamayim v'oretz nehalelcha shvechacha unforecha unvorech et shem kadshecha kamur LeDavid Baruch nafshi et Adonai v'chol kiravai et shem kadsho Oel b'tzat Moses HaMelech HaYoshev al Kisaram V'Nisa Shochen ad Morom V'kadosh Shemo. With Makalot, Rivavot, Habeit Yisrael, B'Yisrael Shemon Lakim, Shechein Chavad, Chol Yisrim L'fanecha, L'Elohinu V'Lei Avoteinu, L'Hodot, L'Halel, L'Shabeach, L'Forel, L'Romeim, L'Hader, L'Varei, L'Kales, Al Kol Divrei Shirot, B'Tish Bachot, David Ben Yishai, Abdecha Meshichecha.
We rise, we're on page 338 at the 6th line down for Yishtabach.
Yishtabach Shimcha Ad Malkeinu. Rachot Rodot Metav Yad Olam Baruch Atah Adonai El Melech Gadol B'Tishbachot El HaHodot Adon HaNiflot HaBocher B'Shirei Zimra Melech Elchei Olamim.
We remain standing for half Kaddish 338.
One short.
Oh, we're short. Nope. Okay, we
short,
skip
too
ahead
short,
to page 340. And we also skip the Baruch Hu because we don't have the minions. So we are at the blessings before the Shema in the middle of page 340. And you may be seated.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer v'rei choshech, v'oseh shalom v'rei hakol. Hakol yeducha v'hakol yishabachucha, v'hakol yimru. Ein kirkachad and Elohim b'olam hazeh v'yein zulat hamalkeinu l'chayei olam haba efes biltecha golenu limot hamashiach v'yein domel hamoshienu litchiyat hametim El Adon al kol hamasim baruch baruch befikol neshama gadlo vetuvo mole olam da utvuna sofa vimoto hamiko el chayot hakodesh benedor bechavod al hamerkava zechud umishor lifnei chiso chesed v'rachamim lifnei kivodo tovim miorot shebara Eloheinu yitzoram bedat bevina uvhaskel koach ura natan bohem liot moshlim bekeref tevel Maleim zivu mefikim noga noazivam bechol haolam smechim v'tzeitam v'sosim bevoam osim b'ei moritzon konam Pierre v'chavod notnim lishmot halavarina l'zecher malchuto kara l'shemesh Vayizrach hora ve'id kin surat halvana Shevach notnim lo kol tzeva maron tiferet ugedula srafim yofanim v'chayot hakodesh Tiparak Turenu Malkeinu V'go Aleinu Kulam Ahovim, Kulam Berurim, Kulam Giborim V'chulam Osim Be'emo V'ira V'tzon Konam V'chulam Podim Et Piem B'Gdusha V'Tahara V'Shira Uv'Zimra V'Vorachim Shavachim Farim Maritzim U'Makdishim U'Mahamlichim Et Shem Hoel HaMelech HaGadol Lakdish liatram benachat ruach b'safa b'ra b'nima kedusha kulam kechadonim v'yomrim ba'yira kadosh 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 Adonai tzvaot melech haaretz kevodo ve'ofanim v'chayot hakodesh b'rash gadol minasim liumat tzrafim liumatam mishabachim v'yomrim Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimkomo. Hamachadesh betuvo bechol yom tamid maseh bereshit kamor oseorim Gedolim ki leolam hasdo or chadash al Tzion Tayir v'nizkeh chulanu mehero lioro Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer hamiorot Vahavtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chem Lavido Lavitera Malta Leinu Avinu Malkeinu Ba'avur Avotenu Shabbat Becha Avinu Malkeinu Vatalamdem Chukei Chaim Kein Techanenu Lamdenu Avinu Ha'av Harachaman Hamrachem Rachem Aleinu V'teinu Libenu Lehavin Lavinu Askil Lishmoa Lil Emodu Lil Ameh Lishmor Velasod Ukayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha b'Ahava V'ha'erinenu v'Toratecha v'dabek v'beinu b'mitzvotecha v'yached levaveinu li'avo u'lira et shemecha v'lo nevosh li'olam va'ed v'lo nevosh li'olam va'ed ki b'shem kachcha hagadol hanora batachnu Nagila v'nismecha v'shuatecha v'havienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot ha'aretz v'tolichenu komemiut le'artzeinu Ki el poel Yeshuot ata'uvanu v'charta v'kolam v'lashon v'keiraftanu l'shimcha hagadol Selah Selah be'emet l'hodot lecha u'yachedcha bi'ahava Baruch atah Adonai, Habocher b'yamo Yisrael b'yahava.
The Shema is in the middle of page 346.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'chol levavcha, u'b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol me'odecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavcha, hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam b'vanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shiftecha b'veitecha, u'v'lechtecha b'derech, Uv'shachbecha uv'kumecha uv'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu l'tadafot bein einecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'yishorecha v'hayayim Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Emet. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Emet b'yas L'dor v'ador u'kermishmo kayam v'kiso nachan malchuto v'emunato lad kayameh v'rav chayim v'kayamim Emet Shoatu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elahei Avotenu Malkeinu Melech Avotenu Go Aleinu Go El Avotenu Yotzreinu Tzur Yeshuatenu Podenu Matzilenu Men Olam Shemecha Ein Elohim Zulatecha Ezrat Avotenu Atahu Me'olam. Azot, shibhu ahuvim, veromemu el, veromemu el, V'nadnu yididim, zmirot, shirot, b'tishbachot, berachot, v'hodaot, l'melech el chai v'kayom. Ram v'nisa, gadol v'nora, mashpil geim u'magbiach shefalim, motzi asirim ufodei anavim, V'ozer dalim, v'yon eliamo, b'yet shavam elav. Tilot le'el elyon, baruch u'mvarach, Moshe u'bnei Yisrael. L'chana shira, b'simcha rabba, v'yomru chulam. Mi chamocha bo'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osei feleh. Shir chadosha shibru geolim, shibra svad hayom, yachad kulam hodu v'imlichu v'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam bo'ed.
Rise on page 352 for Torah Yisrael. This will be followed by the Amidah, which we will do Hiksusha. We'll do the first three brachot together with Dan, and then we'll conclude silently.
Torah Yisrael, Kuma Ezrat Yisrael, Ufdeinu Mecha, Yuda v'Yisrael. Go Aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Go Al Yisrael.
Page 354.
Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elokei Avotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Agadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei HaKol, Mezocher Chazdei Avot, Umevi Goel Livnei B'neihem, L'man Shemo B'Yavo, Melech Ozer Poked Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Poked Sarah, Atah Gibor Li'olam Adonai, Mechayei Meitim Atorav Le'Oshia, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayei Meitim B'Rachamim Rabim. Somech noflim verofei holim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunat Mato Lishene Afor Mikamocha Baal Gevurot Umido Melach Melech Meimi Umechaye Umatzmiach Yeshua V'nemanata L'chayot Mitim Baruch Atah Adonai Mechaye Hametim. Nekadesh et Shimcha ba'olam Kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom Kach katuv al yad neviecha V'kara zeh el zeh v'yamar Kadosh, 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 Adonai, Tzvaot, Melech ha'aretz kevodo. Az b'kol rash gadol, adir v'chazak mashmim kol, mitnasim liumat serafim, liumatam baruch yomeru. Baruch v'od Adonai mimkomo. Mimkomcha malkeinu, malkeinu tofia, v'timloch aleinu, kimecha kimanachnu lach. Mimkomcha malkeinu, malkeinu tofia, v'timloch aleinu, kimecha kimanachnu lach. Motai, motai timloch betzion. Motai, motai timloch betzion. B'karov v'yameinu li'olam va'ed tishkan. B'karov v'yameinu li'olam va'ed tishkan. Tid gadol v'tid kadash T'toch Yerushalayim yircha L'dor v'ador u'netzach nitzachim V'einenu tirena malchutecha Kadavar amur b'shirei uzecha Al yedei David Moshiach tzidkecha Lo Adonai le'olam va'ed Tzion L'dor v'ador Hallelujah L'dor v'ador nagid gadlecha U'lenetzach nitzachim b'dushatcha nakdish V'shifracha Eloheinu mipinu l'imosh li'olam va'ed Ki hamelech gadol v'kadosh ata Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh
The service continues, if you finished your Amidah, on page 392 with Kaddish Shalem.
Yitgadal v'yitgadal shmei Rabbah. Mi'amad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chai echon v'yom echon v'chai d'chol beit Yisrael. B'agolav v'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach. Le'olam le'omei omaya. Yitborach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitramam yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal Shmei Kedusha b'richu li'ela min kol bechata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran v'yoma v'yimeru amen. Titkabel tzelothan uvaut hondechol Yisrael kadam avuhon di bishmaya v'imeru amen. Yesh lomar rabba min shemaya v'chayim oleinu V'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen. Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru amen.
We turn back in our books to page 32. And on page 32, we find the Psalm for Shabbat.
Hayom Yom Shabbat Kodesh Shabu Hayulim Omim Beit Hamikdash. Tzadikata Omar Yifra Keres Bavanan Yiske Shetulim Beveit Adonai Bechatrod Eloheinu Yafrihu Od Yenuvon Deshem Teshenim merananim yehu lehagi ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo avlatabo.
We turn to page 52 for the Kaddish Avelim. Those who are observing a yahrzeit or in mourning, please rise and join me on page 52 for Kaddish Avelim. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra chirute ve'yamlich malchute v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'isman kariv v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Yehi shmei Rabbah barach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar, v'yitaleh, v'yithalal, shmei dekudesha, b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Service continues on page 394 with the service for the taking out of the Torah Sefer.
Steve, do I go down? Steve,
I'm sorry?
do I go down there now?
Yeah, you probably should at this point.
Okay.
while we're taking a second to turn things around, I'll explain a few things. First of all, my name is Steve Schmidt. I am the Vice President for Programming here. Rabbi Spitzer is, or closer to the mic. Rabbi Spitzer is out of town this weekend. He is at the wedding of a friend. So mazel tov to the wedding couple for sure. I doubt they're watching, but if they are, we're thinking of you. And certainly we also wish Rabbi Spitzer a good Shabbat wherever he is. And so I'm here in Rabbi Spitzer's stead. He will be back next week. We are going to take out the Torah scroll. We're going to do things a little bit differently than we ordinarily do because of the pandemic. In particular, what we will do, instead of doing the lifting of the Torah scroll, the Hagbah, after the reading, we will do it before the reading, because this will give people who are taking one of the aliyot, who will not be able to come up on the bima to see the text of the scroll itself for which they're making the blessing, they'll be able to see the text that's being read for them as part of the lifting. This is a Sephardic custom that we've adopted for the case of the pandemic. So if you have an aliyah to the Torah this week, mazal tov, but keep a good eye on that text as it goes up, because that's your opportunity to see what's being read for you and for everybody else. All right, we are ready to continue on page 394 with the service for taking out the Torah. Malchut echa malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dor vador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch leolam va'ed Adonai oz le'amo yitein Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom Av harachamim heitiv avirtzoncha et Zion Tivnei chomod Yerushalayim Tivnei chomod Yerushalayim Ki vecha levad batachnu Melech el ram v'nisa Adon olamim. We rise as the ark is opened. Kuma Adonai ve'afutzu oivecha ve'anusu mesanecha mipanecha ki mitzion tetzei Torah ki mitzion tetzei Torah udvar Adonai mi Yerushalayim Baruch shenatan Torah Torah Baruch shenatan Torah Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Velishmei Kadisha, Kadisha Yakira, Ana Emar Tushbechan, Yehi Rava Kodama, Detiv Tachli Beoraita, Vetashli Mishalin, Delibi, Veli Badech Olamach Yisrael, L'tav L'chayin Veli Shlam. Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Adonai Hagdulah veHagevurah veHatiferet veHanetzach veHahod ki chov hashamayim u'va'aretz lecha Adonai hamamlacha veHamitnaseh lecho lerosh Romemu, 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 Adonai Eloheinu, Vehishtachavu, Vehishtachavu, Lahadom Raglav Kadoshu, Romemu, Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, Vehishtachavu, Vehishtachavu, Lehar Kodsho Ki Kadosh, Adonai Eloheinu. You may be seated. I know you may not be seated because we're going to do the Haggadah. We're going to do the Haggadah first. All right, go ahead. V'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Now you may be seated. The Torah scroll is down. The Torah portion for this week is Parshat Shmini. You can find it in the book on a page that will be known to me shortly. 635. Thank you for the helpful hint on that. 635 is where our reading begins. The portion begins on the 8th day of the purification of Aaron and his sons to become the priests, hence the name Shmini, the 8th. And it tells the story of the divine fire coming down to ignite the offerings and establish the divine presence in the temple, the Mishkan, which is the forerunner of the temple. And the phrase that fire comes forth from the Lord to ignite the burnt offering that Aaron and the priests have offered is exactly the same phrase that's used just a couple of verses later when his sons Nadab and Avihu go into the temple outside of the standard practices and procedures and are destroyed for their mistake, for their sin, for bringing strange fire before the Lord. And the question of how to handle what did they really do wrong and did it merit this level of punishment is one that the commentators have wrestled with. Even Moses and Aaron seem to have had some uncertainty about how to handle this as Moses comes to Aaron and the remaining sons afterwards and says, we did this offering, the leftover meat of this offering is for the priest to eat, you're not eating it, why not? And Aaron says, look what just happened. Would it be appropriate for me to eat at this time? And Moses says, you're right. You shouldn't. He approved. And the Midrash goes further than that, actually. And this is something I heard from a rabbi named Nosson Sherman, who is one of the founders of the Art Scroll movement, who does a video cast every week on the portion of the week, which is always very interesting. Moses not only yielded to Aaron's view, say, yes, you're right, you should not have eaten this, but he went farther and said he publicly owned up and said, yes, that was a mistake, I got it wrong, I should not have suggested that. And he made it known to the public, to the kahal, that in fact Aaron was correct, and he was wrong. And why did he do this? He did this because what was at stake was his credibility as a teacher of the Torah. Not that he would be perfect. Moses is as close to perfect as we can get, but he's not divine. He's human. He's not perfect. And there would be times, as it apparently was this time, Moses simply didn't remember something that had been explained to him by God. It was a high-pressure moment. It slipped his mind. And it was important for him to acknowledge that mistake and say, yes, it was a mistake, so that he told the people, when I make that mistake, I will acknowledge it, I will own up, and so that you know that when I do not do so, I'm not speaking without willingness to correct my errors. If I make a mistake, I will tell you. If I don't correct myself, then what I say is reliable. And that was necessary for maintaining Moses' reputation as an honest and credible leader, that he admitted that was wrong, we're going to move forward, we're going to do it right, and I'm going to let people know that when I make mistakes, we change things, we go forward. So there's a lesson there for all of us, is what the importance of being able to acknowledge when we're wrong and set things back on the right path. Much of what we'll read today concludes with the remainder of the portion, which deals with several laws of kashrut, what we eat and what we don't eat, and also many of the laws of purity, what it takes to keep things in a state to be fit for use in the temple. So the first aliyah is chapter 10, verse 12, and we'll find that on page 635.
Your call.
You want to do it? Okay. Do you actually want to come up here so you can do this into the microphone? You and I we can share this space. Some pre-existing relationship we have. I forget exactly what it is. And I'll gabbai from. Why don't I go over there so you can do the calls into the microphone?
Cool. All right. ויעזור ויגן וישיר לכל החוסים בו ונאמר אמן. הכל הבגוד לאלוהינו תנו כבוד לתורה. במקום כהן תעמוד ברכך רבת אברהם ודוד ושמחה ראשון. ואתם הדבקים בלבבכם חיים כולכם היום.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavaraach.
Baruch Adonai havarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamavaraach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayedaber Moshe el Aharon v'el Elazar v'el Itamar banav hanotarim kachu et hamincha הנותרת מאישי אדוני, ויאכלוהו מצות אצל המזבח, כי קודש קדשים הוא היא, ואכלתם אותה במקום קדוש, כי חוקך וחוק בניך היא מאישי אדוני, כי כן צוויתי, ואת חזה התנופה, ואת שוק התרומה, תאכלו במקום טהור, אתה ובניך ובנותיך איתך, כי חוקך וחוק בניך ניתנו מזבחי שלמי בני ישראל, שוק התרומה וחזה התנופה, על אישי החלבים יביאו להניף תנופה לפני אדוני, והיה לך ולבניך איתך לחוק עולם כאשר ציווה אדוני.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Ta'amod Esther bat Meir veYehudit Sheni.
I want to bench Gomel.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot. Yes, bench and Gomel. And for those of you who would like to make the Gomel response, which is a lovely thing to do, you will find it on page 402. Go for it.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, הגומר לחיים טובות, שגמלני כל טוב.
מי שגמלך כל טוב, הוא יגמלך כל טוב סלע. תעמוד. אסתר בת מאיר ויהודית שני. The second reading will be found again on page 635, verse 16.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך,
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
אמן. ויצעיר החטאת דרש משה, והנה שורף ויקצף על אלעזר ואל איתמר בני אהרון הנותרים לאמור, מדוע לא אכלתם את החטאת במקום הקודש, כי קודש קדשים היא, ואתה נתן לכם לשאת את עוון העדה לכפר עליהם לפני אדוני, הן לא הובא את דמה אל הקודש פנימה, אכול תאכלו אותה. תאכלו אותה בקודש כאשר ציוויתי, וידבר אהרון אל משה, זה היום, הן היום הקריבו את חטאתם ואת עולתם לפני אדוני, ותקרנה אותי כאלה, ואכלתי חטאת היום הייתה בעיני אדוני, וישמע משה ויטב בעיניו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן. יעמדו. מנחם מנדל. מנחם מנדל בן. מנחם מנדל בן. חיים שמואל בבלגה. חיים שמואל בבלגה.
The third aliyah begins on chapter 11, verse 1, page 636, and we have a change of topic here to the laws of kashrut. It's not super common that the structure of the aliyot matches the structure of the text, but in this case it does. We have one aliyah for kashrut of land animals, we have one for kashrut of sea animals, we have one for kashrut of birds, and then we have one for kashrut of swarming things. And the swarming things have not only the issue of whether you can eat them or not, but because they can cause impurity. That's what transitions us from the discussion of kashrut into the discussion of tahara.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMavarach.
Baruch Adonai
Baruch Adonai HaMavarach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. וידבר אדוני אל משה ואל אהרון לאמור עליהם, דברו אל בני ישראל לאמור, זאת החיה אשר תאכלו מכל הבהמה אשר על הארץ, כל מפרסת פרסה ושוסעת שסע פרסות מעלת גרה בבהמה, אתה תאכלו, אך את זה לא תאכלו ממעלה הגרה וממפריסי הפרסה, את הגמל כי מעלה גרה הוא, ופרסה איננו מפריס טמא הוא לכם, ואת השפן כי מעלה גרה הוא, ופרסה לא יפריס טמא הוא לכם, ואת הארנבת כי מעלת גרה היא, ופרסה לא הפריסה הטמאה היא לכם, ואת החזיר כי מפריס פרסה הוא, ושסה פרסה, והוא גרה לא יגר, טמא הוא לכם, מבשרם לא תאכלו, ומנבלותם לא תיגעו, טמאים הם לכם.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Ta'amod Rachel bat Eliezer v'Yocheved Rivi'i. Rivi'i, the fourth aliyah, is on page 638, verse 9.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim v'nata lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
אמן. את זה תאכלו מכל אשר במים, כל אשר לא סנפיר וקשקשת במים, בימים ובנחלים, אותם תאכלו, וכל אשר אין לו סנפיר וקשקשת בימים ובנחלים, מכל שורת המים.
שרץ המים.
כל שרץ המים ומכל נפש החיה אשר במים, שקט הם לכם, ושקט יהיו לכם, מבשרם לא תאכלו, ואת נבלתם תשקצו, כל אשר אין לו סנפיר וקשקשת במים, שקט הוא לכם,
שקט הוא לכם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nata lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ta'amod Aharona bat Meir Yitzchak v'Fruma Chamishi. The fifth aliyah is on page 639, verse 13.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
אמן. ואת אלה תשקצו מן העוף, לא יאכלו שקט הם, את הנשר ואת הפרס ואת האוזניה, ואת העדה ואת האיה למינה, את כל עורב למינו, ואת בת היענה ואת התחמס, ואת השחף ואת הנץ למינהו, ואת הכוס ואת השלח ואת הינשוף, ואת התנשמת ואת הקעת ואת הרחם, ואת החסידה ענפה למינה, ואת התוכיפת ואת העטלף.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ta'amod Esther bat Eliyahu v'Tzipora Shishi. The sixth aliyah is on page 639, verse 20.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
אמן. כל שרץ העוף ההולך על ארבע, שקט הוא לכם, אך את זה תאכלו מכל שרץ העוף ההולך על ארבע, אשר לא קרעים ממעל לרגליו, לנטר בהן על הארץ. את אלה מהן תאכלו, את הארבה למינו, ואת הסולם למיניהו, ואת החרגל למיניהו, ואת החגב למיניהו, וכל שרץ העוף אשר לו 4 רגליים, שקטו לכם, ולאלה תטמאו את הנגע בנבלתם, יטמע עד הערב, וכל הנושא בנבלתם יכבס בגדיו וטמא עד הערב, לכל הבהמה אשר הוא מפריס.
אשר היא.
מפרסת פרסה, ושסע איננו שסעת, וגרה איננו מעלה, טמאים הם לכם, כל הנוגע בהם יטמע, וכל הולך על כפה, וכל חיה ההולכת על 4, טמאים הם לכם, כל הנוגע בנבלתם יטמע עד הערב. עד הערב, והנושא את נבלתם יכבס בגדיו וטמא עד הערב, טמאים המה לכם.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Ya'amdu. I don't know the news yet. Shvi'i, the 7th aliyah, is on page 640, verse 29. Baruch Adonai Vorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
אמן. וזה לכם הטמא בשרץ השורץ על הארץ, החולד והעכבר והצב למיניהו, והנקה והכוח והתלאה
והחומת
והתנשמת, אלה הטמאים לכם בכל השרת על כל הנוגע בהם, במותם יטמע עד הערב, וכל אשר ייפול עליו מהם במותם יטמע מכל כלי עץ או בגד או אור או שק, כל כלי אשר יעשה מלאכה במים יובא וטמא עד הערב, וטהור.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
At this point, we turn to the healing prayer in our service. We open the ark. We rise as the ark is opened. Please join me in the Debbie Friedman Mishabach. Misheberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Misheberach Avotenu Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah, Hu Yivarek v'Rafeh et HaCholim. Shai Aviad ben Balfora, Fagalea bat Minsa Sura, Shalom ben Chaya, Ruchel bat Avram, Yehudit bat Reuven Varesel, Sharona Nechama bat Reuven Varesel, Gavriel Mordechai ben Pesi, Andrew Francis Parisi, Omari Gray, Chaya bat Dvora, Leah bat Dvora, Yakira bat Dvora, Bluma bat Gittel, Dina bat Fagala, Aliza bat Dina, Akiva ben Gittel, Miriam bat Malka, Eliyahu ben Malka, Baracha bat Batya, Miriam bat Sarah, Menachem Mendel ben Sipora, Gershom ben Leah, Robert Borisowitz, Yore bat Avraham v'Sarah, Kyle Scheffler, Cecilia Lynn, Michal Ruth bat Tova, Linda Perlstein, Robert Perlstein, Michael Roberts, Eric Hurst, Riva Bela bat Reza, Sima Freda bat Hanayenta, Hannah Sora bat Susha Nechama, Shlomo Moshe ben Miriam, Yita Masha bat Ruchel, Dylan Middleton, Yaakov Moshe ben Batya Mindel, Perry bat Shulamit, Manish Yisachar ben Rachel, Shmuel ben Yehudit, Shalom ben Chaya, Usher Yosef ben Fega Malka. Ve'et kol hacholim b'kahila hakadosha hazot hakadosh baruch hu yimalei rachamim aleihem lehachazikam u'lefraetam vayishlach lehem refuah shlema min hashamayim refuat hanefesh refuat haguf lechol evrehem v'gideihem b'tok shar cholei Yisrael v'ha'olam ve'chazak et yidei ha'oskim Beats Ravechem, Shabbat hi milizak mizukut, Harfa Arfua, Karov Lavo, Hashtabag Alabisman Kariv and Omar, Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu, Mekor HaBracha La'avotenu, bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Half Kaddish is on page 408. Yikral v'yikadash merabah be'almadi v'rachute v'yamlik malchute v'chaychon v'yamechon v'chay l'chol beit Yisrael b'akalav yizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehesh merabah mevarak l'amo me'almaya Yiparak v'yishtabak v'yitfar v'yirman v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shmei d'kudusha b'richu le'ela min kol b'rachata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Dahamihiran be'alma v'imeru Amen. Ya'amod Shimshon ben Yoshia Hamaftir HaHazak. The Maftir reading is found on page 640, beginning at verse 29.
Baruch hu Adonai Amvorach. Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. וזה לכם הטמא בשרץ השורץ על הארץ, החולד והעכבר והנץ למיניהו, והנקה והכוח והתלאה והלטאה והחומת והתנשמת, אלה הטמאים לכם בכל השרץ או כל הנוגע בהם במותם יטמע עד הערב, וכל אשר ייפול עליו מהם במותם יטמע מכל כלי עץ או בגד או אור או שק כל כלי אשר יעשה מלאכה בהם במים יובא וטמא עד הערב וטהר.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We'll take a second while we do the Galila, the putting away of the Torah scroll back into its holder. And as we do that, we'll bring Art up to the bima to do the Haftorah after a little bit of sanitization. The Haftorah for Parshat Shmini can be found on page 645. And the Haftorah has a common link with the Torah reading, as it always does. In this case, it deals with the danger of the divine presence. Just as in the case of the Torah reading, Nadav and Abihu make a mistake with the Mishkan and are die as a consequence. So it will be in this case that as the Ark of the Covenant is being brought up to the city of Jerusalem, someone will make a mistake, an honest mistake, but will be immediately struck down as a consequence. King David will observe this and say, ooh, maybe we should be a little careful around this thing, and will not actually bring it into Jerusalem right away. He will stash the ark into the house of Obed-Edom for 3 months, during which time Obed-Edom will be greatly blessed. And David will say, I guess if you treat it right, then it's a good thing to have around. So eventually they do work up and bring it up to Jerusalem. One of the lessons I think we take out of this story is that things which have a very powerful religious impact on us, as well as on our ancestors, can be very dangerous things. Religion is a tool that we use. We can do a lot of very great good with it. We can do a lot of very great harm with it. And even sometimes a small mistake can lead to terrible consequences. So we need to be wary of religion as something we try to use for our purposes. And that may be one of the reasons, as we find out in the Haftorah, that David is not going to be allowed to build the temple. He desires to build a house for the ark, for God, having built a capital city for himself. And God says, no, I don't want you to do that. David is the kind of guy who is a little impulsive, gets carried away sometimes. As we'll see in the Haftorah, he's so happy about the ark having come up to Jerusalem that he goes dancing in the streets and does some things his wife doesn't approve of, and we know he should never do things that his wife doesn't approve of. And God says, no, that impulsiveness that you have, you are not the right person to build the dwelling place for God. We're going to pass that job along to your son. I promise to make him a king. I promise to rear up a dynasty after you so that your descendants will do this. But this job is going to go to someone who has a little bit more wisdom that you have, and in that way is a little bit more fit to deal with this very dangerous tool that God has given us, this power of religion and religious persuasion. So we find the Haftorah on page 645.
It's also very, very long, so settle in.
Only because we're Ashkenazim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem anamarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai haboker b'torah u'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nviei ha'emet v'tzedek. Vayosef o David et kol bachur b'Yisrael shloshim aleph. Vayakam vayelech David v'kol oam asher ito mibalei Yehuda la'olot misham et Arona Elohim asher nikra Shem Shem Adonai Tzevaot Yoshev hakruvim alav. Vayarkivu et Aron Elohim et Agalah Chadasha Vayisa'euhu mibeit Anvinadav asher bagiva v'Uzzah v'Achiyahu Achyo b'nei Avinadav nohagim et Agalah Chadasha Vayisa'euhu mibeit Avinadav asher bagiva im Aron Elohim V'Achyo holech lifnei ha'aron, v'David v'chol Beit Yisrael, Misakakim lifnei Adonai, bechol atzei v'roshim, uvichinorod, uvinavalim, uvatupim, uvina'anim, uvetzatzalim. Vayavo ad goren nachon, vayishlach Uzzah el Aron Elohim, vayoches bo, ki shamtu habakar. Vayicharaf Adonai be'Uzzah, vayikehu sham, Elohim al hashal, vayomat sham im Arona Elohim, vayichar leDavid al asher paratz Adonai, peretz be'Uzzah, vayikra lemakom ahu peretz Uzzah, ad hayom hazeh. Vayira David et Adonai bayom ahu, vayomer, ech yavo elai Aron Adonai, v'lo avad David lehasir elav et Aron Adonai alir David, vayatud yatehu David beit Oved Edom Hagiti. Vayeshev Aron Adonai beit Oved Edom Hagiti shlosha chodashim, vayivarech Adonai et Oved Edom v'et kol beito, vayugad lamelech David lemor, beirach Adonai et beit Oved Edom v'et kol asher lo, bavur Arona Elohim, vayelech David, vayal et Aron ha-Elohim, mi beit Oved Edom, ir David besimcha, vayehi ki tzadu, nosei Aron Adonai shishat tzadim, vayizbach shor umeri, v'David mechaker b'chol oz lifnei Adonai, v'David hagur ephod bad, v'David v'chol beit Yisrael malim et Aron Adonai, b'trua v'kol shofar, v'haya Aron Adonai ba'ir David, u'michal bat Shaul nishkefa biad hachalon, vateret amelech David mefazez, u'mechaker lifnei Adonai, v'tevez lo biliba, vayavihu et Aron Adonai, vayatzigu oto bimkomo, v'toch ha'ohel asher nata lo David, vayal David olot livnei Adonai ushlamim, vayichal David me'alot ha'olah v'hashlamim, vayivarech et ha'am b'shem Adonai tzvaot, vayichalek l'chol ha'am v'chol hamon Yisrael, l'miish v'yad isha, l'ish chalat lechem achad, v'yeshpar echad, v'yashisha echad, v'yelech kolam ish leveito. Vayashav David levarech et beito, v'tetzei Michal bat Shaul likrat David, v'tomer, manich bad hayom melech Yisrael, asher nigla hayom li'enei amhod avadav, ki galot niglot achad harikim. Vayomer David al Michal lifnei Adonai, asher becharbi me'avich b'chol beito, litzavod oti nagid, aham Adonai ha-Yisrael, v'shisichakti lifnei Adonai, v'nikiloti od mizot, v'ayiti shafa b'einai, v'yamachod asher amart, imam ikaveda, v'limicha bat Shaul, lo haya la yaled, ad hayom mota. Vayihi כי ישב המלך בביתו, ואדוני הניח לו מסביב בכל אויביו. ויאמר המלך אל נתן הנביא, ראה נא אנוכי יושב בבית ארזים, וארון האלוהים יושב בתוך היריעה. ויאמר נתן אל המלך, כל אשר בלבבך לך עשה, כי אדוני עמך. ויהי בלילה ההוא, ויהי דבר אדוני אל נתן לאמור, לך ואמרת אל עבדי אל דוד, כה אמר אדוני, אתה תבנה לי בית לשבטי, כי לא ישבתי בבית למיום הלותי את בני ישראל ממצרים, ועד היום הזה, ויהיה מתהלך באוהל ובמשכן, בכל אשר הדלקתי, בכל בני ישראל, הדבר דיברתי, את אחד שבטי ישראל, אשר ציוויתי לראות את עמי את ישראל לאמור, למה לא בניתם לי בית ארזים? ואתה כה תאמר לעבדי לדוד, כה אמר אדוני צבאות, אני לקחתיך מן הנווה מאחר הצאן, להיות נגיד על עמי ישראל, ויהיה עמך בכל אשר הלכת, ויכרת כל אויביך מפניך, ועשיתי לך שם גדול, כשם הגדולים אשר בארץ. ושמתי מקום לעמי לישראל נתתיו, ושכן תחתיו ולא ירגז עוד, ולא יוסיפו בני עוולה לבנותו, כאשר בראשונה. ולמן היום אשר ציוויתי שופטים על עמי ישראל, והנכיחותי לך מכל אויביך, ויגיד לך אדוני, כי בית יעשה לך אדוני. כי ימלאו ימיך, ושכבת את אבותיך, והקימותי את זרעך אחריך, אשר יצא ממך, והכינותי את ממלכתו. הוא יבנה בית לשמי, וכוננתי את כיסא ממלכתו עד עולם. אני אהיה לו לאב, והוא יהיה לי לבן, אשר בהבאותו, והכרתתי בשבט אנשים, ונגבה בני אדם, וחסדי לא יסור ממנו, כאשר הסירותי מעם שאול, אשר הסירותי מלפניך, ונאמן ביתך וממלכתך, עד עולם לפניך, כיסאך יהיה נכון עד עולם. ככל הדברים האלה, ובכל החיזיון לזה, כן דיבר נתן אל דוד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, אל הנאמן האומר ויעשה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, ודבר אחד מדבריך כבר לא ישוב ריקם, כי המלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי בית חיינו, ולעלוב הנפש תושיע במהרה בימינו, ברוך אתה אדוני, ושמח ציון בבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך. במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, על כיסאו לא ישב זר ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו שלא יכבה נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן דוד. Ala Torah, V'al Avodah, V'al Anvim, V'al Yom HaShabbat Hazeh, Shenatata Lanu Adonai Eloheinu, Likdusha V'limnucha, Lechavod Ultifaret, Ala Kol Adonai Eloheinu Anachnu Modim Lach, U'Mevarachim Otach, Yiparach Shimcha B'fi Kol Chai Tamid Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
A Yesher Koach to Art Friedson. Thank you for chanting that very beautiful and very long Haftorah. Also want to wish a Yesher Koach to Howard Millman for our Torah reading this morning. Excellently done. And also to Dan Mayer for a beautiful shachrit. We are going to turn to prayer books for the blessings we seek. I will read it if you happen to have it, or if you may have it memorized, feel free to join me. If not, that's okay too. Source of blessing, our guardian of hope, bless, we pray, all who are dear to us. Watch over them with your protecting love. Bless the people of this congregation. Grant them health of body and serenity of spirit. Guide them on the path of Torah and good deed. Bless our country, our leaders, and our fellow citizens. Keep us faithful to our heritage of freedom and justice. Help us banish all suffering and strife. Bless our brothers and sisters in the land of Israel. Prosper the work of their hands and minds, strengthen them and grant them peace. Bless our fellow Jews wherever they may dwell. Comfort those who are in distress, deliver them speedily from darkness to light. Bless all your children in every land and community, unite them in understanding and mutual happiness, hasten the day when all can rejoice in a world of peace. We are going to do the blessing of the new month, the Birkat HaChodesh. I'm going to invite Alexandra Schmidt to come up to the bima to chant that. And we will rise for this because the Torah scroll will come up for it as well. Yeah. Okay,
Yehi ratzon milfanecha, Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu, shetechadesh aleinu et hachodesh haba, et hachodesh haba letova ve'livracha, ve'titen lanu chaim arukim, ve'titen lanu chaim shel shalom, chaim shel tova, chaim shel bracha, ve'titen lanu chaim shel parnasa, chaim, ve'titen lanu chaim shel chilutz atzamot, chaim shel chilutz atzamot, chaim sheyesh bahem yirat shamayim ve'yirat chet, chaim she'en bahem busha uchlima, chaim shel osher ve'chavod, chaim shetehevanu ahavat Torah ve'yirat shamayim, chaim sheyimalu mishalot libeinu, sheyimalu mishalot libeinu, sheyimalu mishalot libeinu letova. Amen, 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 Selah. Mi she'asa nisim la'avoteinu, v'gahal otam me'avdut lecherut, hu yigal otanu bekarov, v'kabetz nidachenu me'arba kanfot haaretz. Chaverim kol Yisrael, chaverim kol Yisrael, chaverim kol Yisrael, chaverim kol Yisrael, v'nomar amen. ראש חודש אייר, יהיה ביום שני ובשלישי, הבא עלינו ועל כל ישראל לטובה.
Rosh Chodesh Iyar will begin on Sunday night, Monday, and Tuesday. May it hold blessings for us and for all the people of Israel.
יחדשהו הקדוש ברוך הוא עלינו ועל כל עמו בית ישראל לחיים ולשלום לששון ולשמחה לישועה ולנחמר ונאמר 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 אמן. שכח.
We turn to page 420, I believe. Yeah, that sounds right. For Ashrei.
Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Oya Hallelujah Selah.
Ashrei Ha'am shekach lo, Ashrei Ha'am she'Adonai Eloham.
Tila LeDavid, Arumimcha Hai HaMelech, V'Barcha Shimcha Leolam Va'ed.
B'chol yom avarcheka v'halel Shimcha le'olam va'ed.
Gadol Adonai Mulal Meyod V'Ligdul Ato Ein Cheker.
Dor ledor yishabach ma'asecha gevurotecha yagidu.
Hadar Kevod Hodecha V'Divrei Niflotecha Asicha.
Ve'ezuz noratecha yomeru gedulatecha asaprena.
Zecher Rav Tu Chayabiyu V'Chidka Chayiranenu.
Chanun merachum Adonai erech apayim ugol chased.
Tov Adonai La Kol Rachamav Kol Ma'asav.
Yodecha Adonai kol ma'asecha v'chasidecha yevarchucha.
Kevod Malchudecha Yomeru Ugvuradecha Yidaberu.
Leodi livnei ha'adam gevurotav u'chavod hadar malchuto.
Malchudecha Malchut Kol Olamim Umem Shadecha B'chol Dor V'Ador.
Somech Adonai lechol hanuflim v'zokef lechol hakfufim.
Einei Kol Elecha Yisaberu V'Tanatin Lahem Edoklam Beito.
Poteach et yadecha u'maspia lechol charatzon.
Tzadik Adonai B'chol Deracha V'Chasid B'chol Ma'asav.
Kara lechol korav lechol asher yikrahu ve'emet.
Ritzon Yiriyav Yasev V'et Shavatim Yishma V'Yoshiyem.
Shomer Adonai et kol ohavav et kol harshaim yashmid.
Tehillah Adonai Yedaber Pi V'Varech Kol Basar Shem Gochol Olam V'et.
V'anachnu nevarech ya me'ata ve'ad olam. Hallelujah. We continue on page 422.
Yahalelu et Shem Adonai Ki Nizgav Shemo Levado Hodo Al Eretz V'Shamayim Vayarem Keren Yamal Tila Lecho Chasidav Livnei Yisrael Am Kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Meanwhile, Davi. Uvnuchot Yomar. Ki lekach tov natati lachem, Torati al tazovu, Es Chaim hi, Makazikim ba, Betochea meusha, Derachea, Darchei Noam, Vechon netivotea, Shalom, Hashivenu Adonai, Elecha v'nashuva, Chadesh, Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu keken.
You may be seated. We are very fortunate to have with us today Bonnie Kramer, my colleague from Union College, who is going to share with us a few words of Divrei Torah, some thoughts on the portion. I'd like to invite Bonnie to come up. We'll send you to that one, I think, for COVID reasons. And looking forward to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Steve. Can everybody hear me? Little closer?
Well, you can hold the microphone closer to you.
I know I'm soft-spoken. Can you hear me now? Good. So Shabbat Shalom. If I were to label this particular davar, I would call it food for thought. In 1989, when I was president of Women's Network with Roberta, and 3 months pregnant with Shira, I gave the Davar Torah on Shabbat Shira, where we crossed the Yam Suf, as we did in Shul last week. As a pregnant woman, it seemed obvious that passing through the Red Sea was a birthing metaphor. We left the womb of Mitzrayim, a narrow place, and with difficulty labored to get to the expanse of the open desert, with the midwives, Miriam and Yocheved, singing to ease the birth pangs. Many came up to me later, including my OBGYN, Dr. Cliff Elson, to say that although they had never seen the story that way, it made sense. I use this example to demonstrate how our personal experiences and our collective history change every year, and why we can read the Torah every year and something new is revealed to us. As we read Shmini in 2021, we have gone through 1 year of a global pandemic, as well as the ugly rise of the virus of hate, whether it be against Jews, blacks, or Asians. We have just completed the observance of Passover, where, and permit me to be sexist for a minute, women for the most part have served as the high priestesses of the kitchen, scrubbing the refrigerator, the stove, schlepping dishes, shopping, and cooking to create in our homes a holy space for the Seder. We are now also counting the Omer, which is the walk from the freedom of Egypt to Sinai. This particular week is week 2 of the 7. It is the week of Gevurah, where we examine boundaries. It is against this backdrop that I read Shmini, a parsha which has 3 very distinct parts. We are on day 8, thus Shmini, of a process to dedicate the Mishkan that we have been commanded in Exodus to build. Va'asu li mishkan v'shinantam betochem. Build me a sanctuary that I may dwell amongst them. And yes, note the plural. Gifts have been received, artists have been creating, clothing has been sewn, bells made for garments, golden candelabras smelted, crimson, purple, blue cloth, all beautifully woven. Remember that we have come out of Egypt, where many of these skills were highly evolved. But now we are not creating as slaves for Pharaoh, but of our own free will for the divine, the one who brought us out of Egypt to serve. And I'm going to use the word them again, not as a plural, but as a gender-neutral term for the divine. Aaron and his sons have gone through purification rituals, put on their special vestments for this culminating day. Aaron as Kohen Gadol, and what I am going to label the sacred chef, is to prepare a purification offering of a calf, a burnt offering, a people's offering of goat and grain, as well as a well-being offering of an ox and a ram. So just to put in a little culinary aside again, this is the week that Torah has manna begin to descend from heaven. We too have a custom that has morphed as our form of a well-being offering. For those of you who are on social media, you may have seen many pictures posted yesterday of chalot, shaped as keys, sprinkled with sesame seeds. As we know, COVID-19 has upped the baking skills of many. These schlissel chalot are made for the Shabbat post-Pesach as a segula, an amulet for well-being and parnosa, income for the coming year, with the sesame seeds representing manna. I think we can go right back to the well-being offering of this parsha to understand what this particular challah is about. After Aaron makes these offerings, first he, and then Aaron with Moses, bless the people. This should be the pinnacle of the story. Fire from the Holy One comes down and consumes the offerings. The people witness this powerful vision of the divine manifestation and fall on their faces. This action completes this holy and sacred offering. Unfortunately, the story of this dedication turns dark. 2 of Aaron's sons offer up avodah zarah, strange fire. Was it incense? We don't know. What we do know is that in contradistinction to the holy fire which just consumed the prior offerings, what is now consumed are Nadav and Abihu. Many commentators puzzle through this. Were they drunk? Were they overcome with youthful ecstasy of seeing the divine? Did they not respect the boundaries? Once again, back to this concept of boundaries. Did they not properly wash their hands and feet? Did they refuse to marry? Different commentators have offered up explanations as to why, but we still don't know. And on the death of his sons, Aaron is silent. The pain of these words is palpable. Vayidom Aaron. He carries the weight of his office. Like so many in COVID times, he is unable to properly mourn the loss of family members. He cannot cross the boundary of holy space into the mundane world. The people will have to mourn on his behalf while he holds the sacred space. As this tragic section of the Parsha closes, we move to the laws of kashrut in great detail. Mammals must have cleft hooves and chew their cud. Fish must have fin and scales. Birds of prey, which are considered angry, are not to be consumed. The list continues through insects and creepy crawly things. So what is the connection of the laws of kashrut to the dedication of the Mishkan? The Mishkan is now a dedicated, holy space. But we, who live outside these parameters, in the mundane world, once again, through food, move to the holy. Food for Jews is a bearer of values and identity. When I eat a piece of matzah, it carries with it the message of freedom and responsibility to the hungry. When I eat a blintz at Shavuot, I am connecting to the giving of the Torah at Sinai, and that I am still receiving this light. When I dip apples in honey at Rosh Hashanah, I commit to fresh starts. With the round challah, I recognize the cycle of life. When I have my stuffed cabbage at Sukkot, I am grateful for the bounty of the land. Latkes or sufganiyot connects me to the possibility of miracles. Hamantashen connects me to the power of resilience and women's power. We all know the saying, they tried to kill us, we survived, let's eat. We affirm life with this act. Eating consciously and with boundaries of kashrut allows us a connection from our mundane world back to the boundaried world of the Mishkan and the holy. I would like to close with one prohibition which fascinated the rabbis. We are not to eat the stork, whose name in Hebrew is chachasidah, from the root chesed, compassion. If we are not to eat birds of prey because we will ingest anger, why is a stork, compassion, prohibited to us? The Talmud gives the explanation that the stork only takes care of its own. We can extrapolate from this that to take care of only your own, in the words of my friend Rabbi Gary Green, is a form of treif. To truly manifest Hesed, we need to reach out and care for each other. As Jews, to be truly kosher and manifest Hesed, we need to stand up against the spread of Asian and black hate, as well as to stand up to rising anti-Semitism. The sanctuary which we dedicated today, Ba'asuli Mishkan V'shinantam B'tochem, was created so that the Holy One could dwell amongst them. The them is us. We are the sanctuary of the divine. This parsha offers us a culinary bridge between the holy and the mundane. May we each merit leaving our narrow place, our personal Egypt, to serve the divine in loving kindness, chesed, for all peoples, in a world that is in great need of compassion. Shabbat Shalom.
Yeshakak, Bonnie, thank you very much for those excellent words. We turn back to our prayer books, to page 428. I'll invite Arya to come back up, and we have the space ready for you. And it is at that point that we will turn to the half Kaddish that precedes our Musaf service.
Yitkara v'yitkara shmei rabba.
Amen.
Be'amadi v'rakir tevim lichmachutei. B'chayechon u'yomechon u'chayechol be'Yisrael. Bagala u'bizman kari v'yimeru. Amen. Yesh me'rabba mevorah le'olam la'me'amaya yitbarach. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yiternam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shmeidu kedusha brichu leila mikol brachata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran ve'amal v'imeru. Amen.
The Musaf Amidah begins on page 430. We will join Arya for the first three brachot and then complete silently after that.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, Elenu, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot, Umevi Goel Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Ufakid U'Moshia U'Maged, Baruch atah Adonai, Magid Avraham Ufakid Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayim Eitim Atorah Le'Hoshia, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayim Eitim B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim B'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayim Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Ba'al Keburot, Umido Melach, Melech Meimi Tumechayeh, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'neman atav lehachayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, l'chayei hametim.
Amen.
Narischa v'nakdishcha k'sosiach sarvei kodesh, h'makdishim shimcha b'kodesh, h'katuv al yad neviyecha, v'karazel zeh v'yamar.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech haaretz kevodo.
Kevodo malei olam, Mishartav sholim zeh lazeh, Ayeh mekom kevodo, Umatam baruch yomeru.
Baruch kavod Adonai mimkomo.
Mimkomo hu yifen v'rachamim, Ve'achron am hamyachadim shemo, Erev avoker b'chol yom tamid, Hamayim v'ava shema omrim.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu.
Vehu Yashmienu berachamav, Shenid le'enei kol chai. Vehu Yashmienu berachamav, Shenid le'enei kol chai.
Liyot lachem Elohim.
Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Udvirei kodecha katuv le'mor.
Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion, L'dor v'ador, Hallelujah.
L'dor v'ador nagid golecha, U'lenetzach netzachim k'shacha nakdish, V'shifcha Elohim mipinu l'amos le'laved, Ki hamelech gadol v'kadosh atah, Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch Shemo.
Ha'el hakadosh.
Amen. We continue our service on page 506 with the Kadashillim.
Kadal v'kadash merabah.
Amen.
B'madivra kirtei v'yom nichmalchutei b'chayechono v'yumechono v'chayedechol b'Yisrael b'galav mankari v'yimaru.
Amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach. Ve'alam ha'me'amaya yitbarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitnam v'yinaseh v'yithadar v'yithalav v'yithalav shemei dekudesha.
Brechu.
Leila mikol barchata v'shir tatush b'chata v'nechamata damiram b'yalma v'yimaru. Tit kabal tot honu va'uthon dechol Yisrael kadama v'uhon dimishbai v'yimaru.
Amen.
Yehei shlamara min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru.
Amen.
Oh, say shalom brahma, huya say shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru.
Amen. Yesher Koach Arya for a beautiful Musaf, and once again, thank you to Bonnie for a very engaging and thought-provoking Devar Torah. We have a few things we want to commemorate today. We have some birthdays. Birthdays in the upcoming week include Peter Berry, Robin Blackmore, Kara Korn, David Goldstein, Aviva Marie Spector, Tammy Weingarten, Mitchell Wool, Ryan Weiss, Rachel Blackmore, Abram James Brown, Annette Keene, Peter Kudan, and Michael Luft Weisberg. We don't have any anniversaries this week, but apparently we are still belatedly wishing the Perlmans, Karen and Alan Perlman, whose were the week before. So still thinking nice thoughts for that. If you see any of those people this week, wish them a happy birthday or happy anniversary as you see them. We're going to also take a moment at this point to count the Omer. We'll do it without the bracha in the daytime, but in case anybody needs that to continue their chain. The counting of the Omer, it's in the book somewhere, but I think many of us can do it without the help. Yeah, not too hard. Hayom, Shlosha Asar Yom, Shehem, Shavua Echad, V'shisha Yamim LaOmer. Today is 13 days, which is 1 week and 6 days of the Omer. And for those of you who are counting, it is Yesod Shebekavura, as Bonnie alluded to a little bit. We continue on page 510 with Aleinu.
Aleinu l'sharbeach l'adon ha'kol l'ategi l'yaser reishit shelo ha'manel yeh ha'atzon v'lo sa'anu k'shakot ha'adam shelo sa'anu k'mikanem v'gor aleinu k'kol ha'manam ha'nam k'korim u'shtacharim u'im l'ifnei melech ha'olamim ha'kadosh baruch hu
Shehu notei shamayim ve'yoser haaretz u'Moshe mikaro b'shamayim imah Shchinatu ve'govei meromim Hu Eloheinu Einod
Emet Malkeinu Efes Zulato Kakatuv B'Torato Ve'adat Hayom Hashevota Elevavecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim B'Shamayim Imah Ve'al haaretz mitachat Einod Einod. Kakatuv V'Toratecha Adonai Yimloch Le'olam Va'ed V'ne'emar Haya Adonai Le'melech al kol haaretz
Bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad U'shemo echad recall with affection those who no longer walk this earth, grateful to God for the gift of their lives, for their sweet companionship, and for their cherished memories which endure. This week we are remembering the following: Valentina Sitnikova, Robert Woodleaf, Harry Abramson, Frida Fine, Ida Rubin, Marguerite Westheimer, Edward Mendelson, Harold Bidwell, Franklin Foote, June Palmer, Richard Fadum, Gerson Sidewater, Philip Glick, and Gertrude Harrison. Those who are in mourning or who are observing a yard site today, please rise, turn to page 512, and join me there for the Kadesh Avilim. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach le'alam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shmeid kudashah, b'rechu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'bromah, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. I'm going to ask Jackie, you want to do this? Fantastic. Come on up, come to the microphone anyway, and have some announcements.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
We want to offer a mazel tov to the Potik family for Zach's bar mitzvah this weekend. So mazel tov to them and Zach. Tomorrow is our Shomrei Kahila Award celebration at 1 p.m. That was a pre-registration to get a Zoom link. I'm not sure if you haven't registered whether you'll be able to, but you can always try. On Thursday is the third, I think, Musar class on an exploration of Musar as we count the Omer. And Sunday the 25th is an interfaith Earth Day mitzvah with the Schenectady Community Ministries and clergy gets faith, and everybody will be helping to clean up Dale Cemetery. That's at 1 p.m. And then that evening is our author visit, with Sarah Hurwitz on the book Here All Along, Finding Meaning, Spirituality, and the Deeper Connection to Life in Judaism, after finding Jesus to live there. That was our book that we, the congregation all received in the, when you got your Mishloach. It was a library of gratitude, that's what I was trying to think of. So that's going to be a really exciting evening. And I think that's it.
Susan?
Oh, Susan has something.
Susan's got one.
As you know, we've been volunteering with the regional food bank, and I got an email from them yesterday that they've been doing a major food drive this week, and they need volunteers tomorrow to help with traffic and unloading and things like that. And I presume you can go to their website to sign up, or you can email me after Shabbat, and I will send you a link, an opportunity to give back to the greater community.
Yeshkag to both Susan and Jackie. I want to wish everybody a good Shabbos. Thank you all for coming. It's good to see you here. Hope we will see you on other days, either here in person on Shabbat or perhaps electronically at minions that we hold during the week. Shabbat is out at 8:14 tonight. I don't know if we're doing Havdalah online, but if we are, we'll be inviting people to join us there. And in any event, we'll wish everybody a good coming week. We are going to close our services on page 514 with Adon Olam.
Adon Olam
Asher Malach B'Terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'et Nasa B'Chepso Kol Hazai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kiklot HaKol Levado Yimlok Nora Vehu Haya Vehu Omer Vehu Yeh B'Tifara Vehu Echad Be'en Sheni Lehamshilo Lehachira Beli Reishi Beli Tachlit Belo Haoz Vehamisra Vehu Eli Vechayoli Vetzur Chevli Beitzara Vehu Nisi Umanos Li Menat Kosi Beyom Ekra Beyado Avkid Ruchi Be'eti Shan Be'ahira Ve'im Ruchi Geviati Adonai Li Velo Ira. Shabbat Shalom, everybody here, everybody's joining us on live stream today, and good rest of Shabbat and a good week.